I heard you.
Okay.
Am I calling to order? All right, let's stand for the flag salute, please. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, attendance. Johnson.
Here.
Krim.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
And Klein is absent.
All right, I'll entertain any public input.
Need to approve the agenda.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm out of practice. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So motion?
Cindy, do you second that?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now I'll entertain public input, to which I see none. All right. Stephanie, please take us through the PCOE first interim financial report.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you all for having a special board meeting. We do have a statutorily deadline of adopting first interim by December 15th, on or before, so we're doing on. And so just because of our regular scheduled board meeting being after this time, that's why we're holding a special board meeting. Okay, so first interim. So we are, what is this? Okay. We are here in our budget profile. We just, last time I was with you all, we adopted the unaudited actuals, right? And remembering that we're always working within a 3-year budget cycle during one budget cycle. So unaudited actuals was for prior year, and what we're working in right now is December 15th, first interim, which is current year. The next time I will see you in January, I will present what the governor is proposing for his budget adoption for the next year, right? So we're always working in those 3-year cycles at the same time. Why are we here? First interim is required by Ed Code. We have to adopt the actuals up to October 31st. All right, so even though we're presenting now in December, all of our numbers are based off of the projections and actuals up to October 31st of this year. And it's to just really establish that we can meet our fiscal obligations in current year and to subsequent years as we do for all reporting periods. Okay, so the point of the first interim is to always to show governing board and oversight agencies that we are tracking current expenditures and projected revenue. We use this as a way to pretty much take how the year actually started. We adopt a budget before the governor adopts his budget, and then we just use all these assumptions to plan out, right? So first interim really says, okay, actually this is how many staff we have, this is our enrollment so far, these are our projections for expenditures and revenues. So it's really what we call our first true budget. Okay, first interim will be the biggest adjustment through the year from adopted. And depending on how dramatically different it is from the governor's adoption, it can be extreme or subtle, just depending on how the year turns out. The adjustments between first interim and second interim to unaudited actuals should be smaller, right? Because we're setting that true adoption at first interim. Just reminders all the time of our acronyms and how we use them throughout the financial reporting. I'm now going to be lighter on those since you have now seen them 6 months now. So just reminders of our acronyms and words. So what we use to establish our first interim is a thing called the common message. And the common message is put together by all county offices, CBOs, who say they meet directly with the finance department from California. And they say, okay, what's happening? What's happening at the state? What's happening with, funding at the state level? And we use that to help draw pictures of what our year's looking like. So from our state standpoint, we see that, there's some uncertainty with K-12 funding just because of the funding models and the state budget. We know that Proposition 98 is a guaranteed minimum guarantee, and the minimum guarantee test at test 1 is about $114.6 billion. And so we have a COLA of 2.3%, and that we did have LCFF referrals from June to July last year. So these are all things that we just keep in mind when we talk about state budgets. A reminder about county office, these are our programs that we run and support at the county office level. So I wanted to add this slide because I think the more information we can provide about the services that we do at the county office level to the district is important. These are multiple programs and also personnel and things like that that we fund to help support the district. I also wanted to show kind of how our funding breaks down. I found this very interesting when I was doing, I think it's a fun fact of that 26% of our overall budgeting is actually for county office operations. So the rest of it, 41% goes to bill back to the district. So these are services as a single that we give our staff to the district and do district operational functions. Okay, for example, some of our business office staff is funded at 75%. So 75% of their work approximately is really the district, and so we bill back to the district for those funds. And then 33% is grant funded. So we are more funded by grants than we are for our operating costs. So I just find that really interesting when we look at those percentages as a county office level. Apparently I did not get my functions put in. So speaking of how many grants we have, I just wanted to give a snapshot of the grants that we have in support at the county office level. These are mainly specific to county office funding. You may see some similar ones on the district side, but they are much larger and have different purposes. For example, UPK, on the district side, it's about actually implementing a UPK program. On the county office side, it's about supporting UPK and also county office oversight. So the grants are similar, but have different purposes and cannot always be used to fund both of the programs. They really are an oversight specific grant. We also, these grants on this side are grants that we get through collaboration with other educational partners. So like other county offices, the county itself, or the Department of Health, things like that, that are not necessarily state grants. We work directly with other resources to get them. And grants are highly acronym based. Let me move this so you guys can see. Oh, I can shrink it. There we go. Okay, so general operating, so we look first at our revenues comparing what our adopted was to our first interim. You can see they were pretty close, but there is a increase in our unrestricted revenue, and this is based off of the fact that we are in DA, which is differentiated assistance from the district level, which added $300,000 to our operating budget, and we also had a true cost of our P1 taxes, which were slightly higher as well. P1 taxes are not what we're funded at, it's a projection of what P2 taxes will be, which is our final property tax revenue. Okay, so I did want to walk through a little bit of how the LCFF on a county office side is funded, since I haven't done that presentation yet, and I think it's helpful to understand how we are funded as a county office. This may look familiar to the same LCFF calculator we use on the district side, and you'll see this again on the district presentation. But the way it's based off of is we have an overall ADA. So we have our county ADA, but then it's actually funded off of the total base ADA from our county office programs, our district, and any charter enrollment. So because of all those components, we oversight all of them. That's how we're funded off of that ADA. Okay, so the ADA for this band one, we get pretty much $200,000, right? Not a ton. And then we have one site, so we get funding for each district. We have one district in our county, so we get the one add-on of a district. We also have our opportunity grant allowance, which is added here. And so our total, all the way down here, all of these things add into our LCFF funding of $2,001,336, okay? So I just think this is helpful to understand where that LCFF calculation comes from, is the ADA having a district and having programs like community schools. So we take that, and then we also get our total allocation across technically four different breakdowns. We get our state aid, which is right here. We get our EPA, which is an apportionment that is required to be spent on certificated instruction. That money can only go to certificated instruction, okay? So any of our teachers, those get funded out of that. Then we have our local revenue, which is our property taxes. So our total LCFF in funding sources is 2,301,336, okay? So that is the funding formula for LCFF. This is just showing the projections for the next 2 subsequent years as well, because first interim, it's all about showing what we can do this year and what we can do in the next 2 years. Okay, so you can see slight increase across the funding models. Now we're gonna go into expenditures. We just talked about revenue, so now expenditures. We had a higher projected of expenditures because of bad position control, other things that put into place that we've done a lot of cleanup on. And so by doing true cost and also making sure that any positions that were grant funded that didn't have people in them, right, we're not choosing to keep those, we're not choosing them to keep them in the budget anymore, right? Because we're not filling them and they don't exist anymore. And there's not people based. So we have the expenditures totaling about 5 million. So we now look at the difference between our revenue and our expenditures, right? When we talk about deficit or excess spending, what we're talking about is, are we able to stay within our revenue limits for that current year, right? And on the district side, no, we're not. On the county side, yes, we are functioning within an excess of expenditures. So the current year projection is we are getting $1,384,000 over how much we're getting in revenue, okay? And what that does is then increase our fund balance. So again, we have an excess, which increases the fund balance. We get an excess and we get an increased fund balance, okay? So the current projections show that year over year, we are staying within our revenue limits. All right, so the next time you will see me is when I propose what the governor's proposal is for 26-27. I go to in person for a workshop in January to see exactly what his funding proposals are. And then the next report that we do is second interim, which is actuals up to January 31st. So this was October 31st. Then we say, okay, now midway through the year, what does everything look like? And as long as we're positive, that will be the last interim report you see. And then you'll see us in adopting next year's budget and unaudited actuals. If we were negative, we are required to do a third interim, which I do not foresee for the county. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Do you need a motion to approve this?
I do.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the PCOE first interim financial report.
I make a motion to approve.
Have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any future agenda items? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
All right, done.
Second.
Right.
More than 5 minutes.
Well done.
Very informative, thank you.
That's good, I can exit out of. Actually, will you press the escape button?
Okay, good evening. We will call the meeting to order of the Plumas Unified School District Special Board Meeting. Please join me for the pledge. And ready, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Attendance, County Administrator Richard Devine. Present.
Present.
PCOE Superintendent Andrea White.
Present.
Okay. Approval of the PUSD agenda. County Administrator approves of the agenda, and this meeting will be very specific to the first interim report. But with that, I will entertain public input. Is there any public input? All right, seeing none, we will go right to the fiscal portion of the agenda. And this is the first interim report, and Stephanie.
Hi,
Take it
thank
away.
you. So thank you for scheduling the special board meeting. We do have a statutory deadline of December 15 to adopt on or before December 15th, the first interim. So with our regular scheduled board meeting being after that deadline, we did have to hold this special board meeting for adoption. Okay. So the last time I was here, we did the unaudited actuals for prior year 24-25, and so now we're transitioning into current year projections of first interim report. Budgeting cycles will always be in a 3-year span. We do prior year, current year, and future year. All right, so what we're working on right now is current year, and then the next time you'll see me is when we go and talk about future year of the governor's budget. All right, we are here because it is required by Ed Code to adopt a first interim of all expenditures and actual revenues up to October 31st. We get about these 2 months to process all of that data and be able to present by December 15th, showing that we can meet fiscal obligations in current year and 2 subsequent years. We're always required to do both of those, not only prove we can meet current obligations, but also what the future holds, because those will play directly into the decisions we make as a district. All right, so we have to report first interim because the governing board and oversight agencies need a mid-year check on how we're doing. So we update from the adopted budget to show current enrollment, staffing ratios, how expenditure projections are looking, often like pushing out all of our POs at the beginning of the school year, knowing our expenditures and making adjustments to what we planned, right? And so we do all of that for expenditures up to October 31st. That is our snapshot, which is how interim reports work. It's a snapshot of where we are. It also is, again, like we say, it allows to show risk of what's happening in the future years as well as what's happening in current year. So we often refer to first interim as our first true budget because we are required to adopt our budget before the governor adopts his budget and before we really know staffing, enrollment, and all of those things. So first interim is our first true snapshot of saying, yes, this is how the budget got enacted. These are the revenue streams that we have in place, and these are our staffing ratios, student ratios, and everything like that. Okay, acronyms. I'm not gonna walk through them anymore because we've been doing this now for a while, but it's just a reminder of acronyms that may show up in reporting periods and other things that we use pretty universally across school finance. Okay. One of the things we take into account with first interim reporting is the state's budget. All right, so the state's budget continues to have some uncertainty between K-12 education. However, because we had a statutory minimum guarantee, we are protected more than other state departments. And so with the first test one of what Proposition 98 withholds, it is projecting at $114.6 billion. We have the approved cost of living adjustment, which we call the COLA, at 2.3. This is what increases specific state grants. Okay, so for example, if we were directly just LCFF funded, this would increase our per ADA cost by 2.3%. All right, doesn't impact us as much as you will see in a few slides moving forward with basic aid, but it does increase LCFF funding. We did also have a deferral at the beginning of the year that didn't impact our cash flow at the time, but it was important to keep in mind deferrals are showing up more and more, which means the state says you're entitled to money, but we're not going to give it to you yet, we'll give it to you later. This is why they often advise us having cash flow is really important, which is a struggle for our district. So, unlike county offices, we really are based mostly off of ADA and not just district funded. So when we look at our P1, which is our first snapshot of reporting of our attendance, it's not what we're funded off of, it's just the first indication of certified data, okay? The actual funding comes from P2, and that won't be until the second half of the year. And that's when we're actually funded off of. But it does allow us to have projections that are more clear. Our P1 data here is not certified yet because it's not due until January 15th, so we won't have certified data, but we have to use something to project, right? So our current P1 projections are showing total enrollment of 1,551 students. We have an unduplicated pupil count of 1,013, which is a UPC percentage of 65%. This is important because it actually meets certain statutorily deadlines for us to increase funding. Okay, so for example, we qualify for concentrated and supplemental and concentrated grants from our LCFF, which impacts the money we use for our LCAP. Okay, that's the threshold they tell us of what we have to use to serve our high need students. We also meet tier 2 for ELOP, we're over 55%, so our after school program funding is increased significantly per ADA because we are over a 55%. All right, so as you all are aware, we have an emergency apportionment and we are currently under state receivership. So what this means is that we projected that we were gonna have cash insolvency, which means we would have no money to fund personnel or operational costs projected in September of 2025. We were able then to approve a request for emergency apportionment from the state. We got the approval of $20 million under AB 121. We did go ahead and do our first drawdown of the $20 million of $8.5 million because to keep operations going of that September payroll. This, we continue to show a structural deficit of $9.5 million. However, because of the $8.5 million one-time cash flow, you're gonna see that it does kind of tell a different story in our financials that complicated a little bit, showing not as large of a deficit, but it's a one-time expenditure that we got to just support our cash flow. All right, so our overall revenue is projected at $35,848,000. Again, this does include the $8 million from the one-time receivership influx. So you can see that our unrestricted revenue it's minimal difference than what was originally projected because it is easier to predict our revenue because it's tax-based. So regardless of how fluctuating our ADA is, we're pretty sure on what we're gonna get in our LCFF funding. Our unrestricted is slightly higher because of some grants that we had, and so we did get a higher percentage here of a few $100,000 across the board. This is our LCFF calculator. I felt like I wanted to show more about why I say we're basic aid and the ADA doesn't impact us as much, because if we were a regular school, this a regular school, if we were an LCFF funded school, we would see this is the most important part of our LCF calculator because it is ADA based and we get funded per ADA at a grade span of a base amount, okay? So the more ADA you have, the more money you create, right? You generate more money for every single ADA you'd have. On top of that, LCFF has add-ons. So home to school add-on, you get an additional funding. Bus replacement programs, additional funding. TK add-on, this one was huge for a regular school district because for each TK ADA, you got an additional $5,000 for each kid. Like that is significant when it comes to ADA, especially with meeting the staffing ratios we need for TK. But if you go all the way down to the bottom, you can see, wait, we don't get any of it. So because our threshold, we currently have an LCFF entitlement of $22 million, right? But as basic aid, all of that gets deducted out. So we are less than what our current property taxes are projected to be. So by doing that, our total basic aid, our total LCFF funding is zero. But we are always guaranteed the state aid guarantee, which means our LCFF amount will at the minimum be this amount over year, okay? They cannot go lower than that, regardless of how high our property taxes get. That's just the base of our LCFF funding. This is important for us as a district because we are required to pay back our advance apportionment out of our LCFF entitlement. So when we start making our payments back of around $609,000 annually, if we don't have to do another drawdown, our current projections show that, it will have to come out of this LCFF, okay? So thinking about losing half of that every year for our advance payments. So our total LCFF entitlement is gonna be that 1 million, but as property taxes, we get 26 million. So our overall LCFF entitlement for current and 2 subsequent years is our minimum guarantee, our required EPA percentages, which have to go to certificated instructional salaries. This is just a prior year adjustment that occurred for EPA. And then as a district who supports a charter, we are required to do a charter in lieu. So as enrollment and ADA for our charter increases, the amount of money we have to give them increases. So that's updated on an annual basis as well. And so you can see out of the 26 million that we get in property taxes projected for this year, 3.7 million needs to go to charter, okay? So all of that is just, I wanted to kind of break that down a little bit more in understanding how LCFF works. Our general expenditures compared, we are totaling $41 million for our general expenditures. Some impacts that led to a lower projected expenditures was due to the next item on our agenda, which will be the approval of eliminating inactive positions. Going through our position control and everything that occurred, we noticed that 34.4 FTE was not even on anyone's radar. They're just positions that sat in our position control that just haven't been eliminated. One-to-one's not existing anymore. Grants expiring, just no one's in them and they just aren't even in consideration for operations as a district. So what we decided to do was eliminate those so our position control is up to date. The only vacancies that exist in our financial system are active vacancies, okay?
Good news.
Yes, and this approximated about $1.8 million. And so we do also see savings in general vacancies, right? It's by October 31st, if we haven't filled a position, we save money, right? Hypothetically, if also the sub filling the position is not more expensive than other positions, right? But that's where the first interim really gives us that first snapshot of, are we saving money? Are we doing less than projected if we would have had every position filled to 100%? Okay, so I thought it was important to show us that the deficit spending at adopted budget was negative 7 million, right? But because we got the $8.5 million one-time advance apportionment, we do have the deficit spending being excess spending. right? This is not because we made some awesome savings or did anything, it's just because we got an advance apportionment, all right? So when we look at these numbers, when we see the positive, it's just sometimes misleading. So keeping that in mind when we're looking at multi-year projections and things like that. And you can see that the deficit problem isn't solved because the 2 subsequent years have the deficit returning, right? And that's why when we talk about a fiscal recovery plan, we're talking about ongoing savings. We will not be able to have one-time influx cash past the remaining $12 million that sits in our advance apportionment. So once it's gone, that's it. We have no other cash to pull from. So current projections show we will have a positive ending fund balance in 25-26, which is great, but again, misleading because it's just a one-time influx. We go back to deficit spending $6.26 million, and because we had a starting fund balance of $4 million, we have an ending fund balance of negative 1.5, right? And then it just compounds moving forward. Then we deficit spend again, and our negative balance goes back to that 7.5 that originally started how we were supposed to be adopted at the beginning of this year. So we can see there's a very clear structural deficit problem of approximately 7.5 million, but that's without hitting any of our other statutory requirements for reserve, raises, being competitive, all of those things that we know we're gonna have to do moving forward as a district. And also operation costs just are always gonna continue to rise. Employees will always be more expensive, health and welfare will always be more expensive, keeping the lights on will be more expensive, so we're keeping that in mind as we're building out our savings plans. So speaking of reserves, one of the biggest parts we have to do is have a minimum 3% reserve at all times. Clearly, we are not gonna hit that in our 2 subsequent years. The only reason why we're hitting it this year is because of the advanced apportionment. All right, we would have been negative there as well. But due to the adjusted ending fund balance, we do hit our 3% minimum guarantee in current year and projected to be $2.8 million short next year and $8.5 million short in the 3rd year, which is where we're really getting those projections for the savings amounts that we need to do in our fiscal recovery plan. Okay, so the next time you'll see me is when I bring forward information about what I hear from the governor. And then in March, we will adopt our 2nd interim, which will be the actuals up to January 31st, and which will be half the school year, giving us even a closer picture of potentially how our year will end. Thank you.
Thank you. And so with that, are there any questions or are there any public comment on the first interim report?
I have a question. I just want to clarify, Stephanie, that what you're doing next, what they're doing next, the vacant positions, were they budgeted this year, like with funds? All these positions that were,
I can't answer that,
We can't
but
answer with public comment.
What's that?
I can't answer public comment, but if you would.
Yeah. So the 1.8 million, the good news is that counts toward the 9.5 that we're trying to cut. And so those were unfilled positions that we cut out of the budget. So now with that has reduced our liability for that 9.5. So that's really positive news.
but were they in the budget? What I'm saying, did you guys put money in there to budget them? Because I know, I was a county supervisor, they'd always put budget for vacant positions and have extra money rolling around later, but were these budgeted? Okay, so that money.
How about ask her question to me in your budget?
Stephanie, could you explain that?
Yeah, just because I just want
So,
to make
yeah, because
sure,
it gets a little
I
bit.
just want to make sure I
There you
understand, yeah.
Okay, good.
So now, so board discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, I will answer your board question if that was included. So our adopted budget had the vacancies included into it, but because now we have we're going to board eliminate them, those reductions are now seen in first interim. So they were in our original adopted budget, yes, absolutely, because if they are in our financial system, we need to account for them. That is why the next item is to eliminate them so that we can officially remove them from our operating budget.
Okay, thanks,
Does
that makes sense,
make sense?
yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
understand.
All right. Any other questions, any other comments?
please come to our Q&A tomorrow at 4 that I'm hosting, so that if you have questions like that, I can directly answer them and go in as elaborate detail as you would like. It will be held on Zoom
Really
at 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Right, yes.
Where is that, the location of that meeting?
That's a
Zoom.
Zoom meeting?
Zoom, okay.
Yeah. And so where do they find that link if they're interested?
Oh, it got sent out on Parents Group. We can post it. I can post it. It's on the
On the
website. Yes.
Okay.
I can ask Carrie to post
Okay,
that.
so we'll post that in the morning on the website,
Yeah.
just to make sure that everybody has the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, anything else? All right, county administrator has no further public comment, and I believe this is an action item. And so, I move to approve on the first interim report, and I second, and so approved. And,
Resolution.
The next one.
okay, I need my glasses. Oh, there we go. So then it's the mid-year, PUSD resolution 1695, mid-year position elimination, and that's that 1.8 million that we were discussing earlier.
Yeah, so the attachment shows all the positions that were in our financial system and their FTE and the amount that was budgeted per our system. You'll see not everything had a amount next to it because it's actually a manual process to add a budget into them. But overall, 34.4 FTEs being eliminated and $1.8 million in savings that have been already reflected in the first interim reporting.
Very good,
These did not impact any active positions or any current employees.
yes. So those were the easy ones. So
Yes.
that's good. All
And
right.
that does go towards the 9.5 that we're projecting for our savings. So
Right.
our next goal is, math.
Getting the rest of it.
Yeah.
All right, any other thoughts on that? Okay, so that is approved by the county administrator, the 1695 mid-year position elimination.
Okay, this resolution requires a roll call vote. County Administrator Richard Duvarney.
Yes. All right. Any future agenda items? Okay, well, we'll be back in the same bat place and bat channel on Wednesday for our regular board meeting, so that should be informative as well. And we'll go over the interim report probably in a little bit less detail, but it's already approved at this meeting. So the approval has already been done, but we can revisit it a little bit on Wednesday. All right, thank you, meeting adjourned.
Yes.
We'll see if my computer works now. No. Oh, sorry, I was trying
You're
to.
over there.
I was
Turn off the sound in the video.
You doing okay?
We don't want to take it.